We're back on Popcast Deluxe, youtube.com/Popcast. Like and subscribe. Songs of the week. We're going to do something again. The only real change that we're doing is instead of just you and I both recommending a song, which is basically what we've done in the past, we're also going to talk about a song that feels big at the beginning.
Biggest song of the week.
Yes.
With
A or
moving
the.
criteria.
Yes. Obviously, the biggest songs of the past week we've just been talking about for the last hour.
Check out those segments.
Yes, check out those
on
segments.
YouTube.
But let's talk about someone who maybe I think has a song in the chamber with Drake. Perhaps. I mean, I feel like that was alluded to.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Peso Pluma?
I think Drake is going to be talking real greasy in Spanish.
In
soon.
like on the he's like going to get on the Chino Pacas record and like really just could happen. Speaking of a scene where there's a lot of internecine beefs, but let's talk about Peso Pluma. Peso Pluma has a new single. It's called Peso Completo. It's with Arcángel, who's a big reggaeton star. Let's listen to a little bit of that.
Primero fundé Dona, nunca tuve pecas, trabajé 1000 horas. Que sigan buscando, pero no tuvieron la escuela de grandes personas. La que se navega 4 o 5 llora. El que pegó su propia banda sonora. Ahora varios ya me prenden veladoras. La cuenta la mandan a la contadora.
So, one of the things that I was trying to think about when I profiled Peso Pluma last year, and I think will continue to be one of the main narratives around his rise, is to what degree does he move away from the sound of corridos tumbados towards Latin trap, towards reggaeton? Like, there is this sense, I feel, with mainstream Spanish language pop where everybody's moving together and you're losing like the tiniest bit of the regional specificity. And obviously, like, music from the Dominican Republic is very different than music from Puerto Rico, which is very different than music from Mexico, which is very different than music from Colombia. And
within those countries,
yes, there's
also
so many subscenes within. And Peso Pluma has been famous for, let's call it 2 years now. Had a lot of huge records, but one thing that I think has happened a lot with other stars is this sort of like incremental move towards the poppier side of reggaeton for Spanish language stars. And I feel like you see this with Peso Pluma on the Karol G song.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's called Culona, which is like a big song. Maybe it's, I mean, still big. Came out last year, I think, or earlier this year. And so I wonder, is that an inevitability for stars coming out of this ecosystem, especially one, you know, Peso Pluma has a band, but he's not a band. Unlike, say, you know, Fuerza Regida or Grupo Frontera or whatever, who are bands moving with the full weight of all the instruments. He obviously has a lot more flexibility because he's just a guy fronting a group of traditional musicians. So when I hear a song like this new song with like a very long-running star, a long-running reggaeton star, and I listen to it, and I think, at what point, if at all, does this start to wash out the older part of his legacy and the older part of his sound? And is there some sense internally, management-wise, and so on and so forth, of how do we maintain? I mean, it's like a classic, like, underground mainstream tension,
except
but to
that
me,
the underground stuff
is
was
huge,
also humongous.
Actually huge,
yeah,
right? That's
like,
the thing. It's like the tension is there, but the rules of play are very, very different.
Yeah, it's like I have no animosity towards this song. Like it's a fine song, but I don't need to hear Peso Pluma rapping triplets back and forth with Arcángel. Like it's just like, this is not why you come to Peso Pluma if you've been listening for the past 2, 3, 4 years. And it does feel like sadly inevitable. You know, it's sort of like the J Balvinification of all of Latin music, which is like the thing that J Balvin has, you know, trumpeted sort of like off the back of someone like Pitbull is like worldwide music. Yes. Like it's Latin takeover. We're all,
dare you take Pitbull's name in vain on this show.
It's a sort of like smoothing out
yes
of the wrinkles of
it's
more individualized
It's becoming
cultures.
the accent piece to a larger narrative rather than being the person who sets the. To me, what I want to hear, and this is like when Bad Bunny got on the Nathaniel Cano record a couple years ago or 3 years ago, I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Si se lleva los amigos cuando le doy soy el bueno cuando no soy un maldito pero si yo fuera pobre para qué sirve Benito cierra bien esa bocota casi te ves más bonito hoy salimos para la calle.
Obviously, he was trying to he was sacrificing a little something, but
Sure.
he was the more famous person,
Right. I mean, Bad
It's
Bunny is the best possibility for becoming huge, trying on all these different styles, being more pop than you were at the beginning of your career, but maintaining your idiosyncrasies.
Yes, and
For the
also,
most part.
But Bad Bunny also has like a tremendous amount of personality in his voice and versatility. He's the most Drake-like figure working in this space. My concern, my fear when I hear songs like this is how many of these songs does it take before this becomes what people ask of Peso Pluma?
I do think his voice is less suited to this, like the certain nasal, high-pitched quality that he has in this sort of like straight reggaeton rap back and forth. Like it's less affecting. And I just don't there's a Kith reference in here. That's for all the English speaking
streetwear
language
friends.
of English for all the English speaking fans of Spanish music, you can catch that one. It's just
First of all, Spanish-speaking fans go to Kith too.
I know I'm saying,
yeah.
but I'm saying you don't have to understand Spanish to understand the
No,
Kith reference.
that is true.
But yeah, I just think it's a little too smooth and it doesn't play to his strengths.
And I also, the thing that I was most excited about, and still I'm very excited about with Peso Pluma, is I want to hear other people come to his world.
Exactly.
Whether it's a Drake or English language. I mean, hell, I want to hear Cameron on one of these records. I want to hear Boss Man D-Lo on one of these records. Cash Cobain. I want to.
It doesn't have to be a trap beat for them all to come together.
Right. Like I want them to come to his world, and I feel like obviously there is this need to play in a lot of different spaces, but I would much rather if the next few steps of the rollout were saying the Peso Pluma sound is so signature, so interesting, and so appealing that other people from other scenes, whether they're Spanish scenes, Spanish language scenes, or English language scenes, are lining up to be a part of it. You mentioned Balvin.
Mm-hmm.
I know we all saw the footage of Balvin at Coachella with Will Smith.
Yes.
Can I just 20-second sidebar on Coachella? I've often said terrible things about Coachella on this show. I'll never go back after having seen Beyonce. What could possibly top that? I still stand by nothing could top Beyonce, but I will say this year, the video that has been circulating on Twitter and online of the Coachella live stream, it's maybe the first year where I'm like, maybe I'm just getting old. I don't know.
And you miss your Coachella days?
I was sort of like, I wouldn't have minded seeing the Lana thing.
I mean, Lana on the back of the motorcycle.
Great moment.
Incredible.
Tyler, I have no particular affection for Childish Gambino, but hearing Tyler talk about hating Childish Gambino right after he had him out on stage and being like, I got to look into therapy, I thought that was great.
You're leaving out one big Coachella moment, and this is my song of the week.
This
is how we got
setting
here.
you up.
This is...
Wait, you mean Taylor Swift dancing with Travis Kelce?
Well, Ice Spice smokes feet from them, but doesn't pass.
Doesn't pass. Doesn't pass.
Look, the media training is working.
Yes.
Let's say that. Sky Ferreira, legend, hasn't put out an album since her one perfect album more than a decade ago.
Incredible
My
record.
Time. But she came out with Kevin Abstract.
Opened the Kevin Abstract set.
Okay. So it's giving Dream. Kevin Abstract.
You mean like Fever Dream,
Yes,
not
Sky
the girl,
Ferreira.
not the girl group Dream.
No, not the girl group Dream.
Okay.
Kevin Abstract, Sky Ferreira doing a goth cover of Need You Now
by
Lady Antebellum.
Now Lady A.
Now Lady A.
First of all, play it, bathe in it, soak in it.
Need the studio version ASAP.
Obviously.
this Sky version, you know, I think she's having a little trouble maybe with her monitor. She rips it out at some point. It's not perfect.
No Grimes.
But the, you know, the selling point of Sky is often imperfection in a lot of ways.
Like almost to the point where I didn't even like
None of that catch that. Yeah.
Didn't even really register for me.
It did make me realize that this song is basically The Hills by The Weeknd.
Yeah.
But gender flipped.
I thought you were saying it made you realize that my early 2010s year-end lists were perfect.
Yes, very, very 2009. This Lady Antebellum song, but it was a classic then. It's a classic now. Free Sky Ferreira.
I do want to say, every now and again in that era, late 2000s, like my early years at the paper, I'd put out these lists and they'd have Lady A on them. They'd have Sky Ferreira. They'd be all over the place. And people would be like, you don't like all that music. You don't actually like it. There's a famous producer once who I was having a conversation with. And he's like, you don't really like Rascal Flatts, do you? It's an actual thing he said.
Wow.
I do like Rascal Flatts, for the record. But I just feel like at that time, I mean, look, people can like all kinds of music, and now it's like very normal to be like, oh, I love pop country. I love Luke Combs. You know, there's a lot of that. But that wasn't really in play that much at that era. Not the same. And I just want to say, hearing Sky Ferreira covering Lady Antebellum, I was right.
That's what you really need in life, validation.
I certainly don't get enough week in, week out. Anyway, that's my takeaway. But it was great. I also thought she sounded great. You're absolutely right about The Hills. Like and also one of the great things about Need You Now is how aspirated and desperate that song is.
Yeah. And that's why she's the perfect person
That's
to sing it.
exactly right.
Yeah.
Like takes all the harmony. Like the only thing that really like rescues that song and makes it poppy is the harmony. And she's just like, what if we just like strip all that out and just make it sad and tragic
and shoegaze? Yeah,
incredible.
You got a song this week? We were just swerving.
First of all, not only do I have a song, I have a movement. The actual opposite of Sky Ferreira covering Need You Now. I'm not even going to make a joke. The Slut Me Out 2 discourse is active.
That's a phrase.
It's active. There was so NLE Choppa.
It's a rapper.
First of all,
not on this song, really.
First of all, NLE Choppa, who I've been a fan of since Shot of Flow.
Yeah.
And especially the Blueface remix, which was one of my favorite songs of whatever year that was, 2019 or 2018 or whatever. NLE Choppa is a rapper who I have always found to be a good rapper without necessarily a hard, fixed, defined sound. He moves but never lands. At Rolling Loud, I believe, he, during his performance, said he's going to unveil a snippet of Slut Me Out 2. There's an original Slut Me Out from a couple years ago. It's extremely raunchy. There's like a Sexy Red remix, which is even raunchier. This Slut Me Out 2 is not a remix. It's a totally new song.
It's a sequel.
It's a pop disco record about being in love with yourself and how people should love on you the way that you... Look, we're going to play the clean version because
which barely exists.
Yeah, it's like this is a family newspaper, so like this is like a clean version. Let's play a little bit of the Slut Me Out 2.
If I was a bad bitch, I wanna hunt me too. I wanna trap me too. No freaky that I wouldn't do to me.
Okay, so the discourse around this song, Choppa was on Twitter talking about being embraced by the gay community, the LGBTQ community, and saying that he really appreciates that, and he was raised to show love to anybody showing love to him, so he really embraced it. And then people came at him about his sexuality. He said, hey man, like, that's not cool. Like, just because I embrace these fans doesn't mean anything about me. He used an incredibly strange choice of words to say it, but there's a lot of conversation about straight men being camp on this. It is also just a baffling song. It has nothing to do with like any current hip hop sound.
That's for sure.
It has nothing to do with maybe any current sound in any genre.
Yeah.
Like genuinely, when I call it a pop disco record, the closest thing I can think of is it is like a cheesy record from the 70s.
Yeah.
And also one of the things that he was talking about, he did like maybe like a Twitter live or a IG live, whatever, talking about dancing. And he's like, hey, you know, like in the 60s and the 70s, like men were free to dance, didn't make them less of men. It didn't make them less tough. It was like woven into the aesthetics of the era. And he's like, I don't know why people are giving me a hard time for dancing. All this discourse, it's fascinating to see people are really enjoying this song and enjoying the conversation of this song. That said, the actual lyrics of this song are bonkers. It's
quite intense.
It is out of control. I lack the words to properly report on the words of this song. All I can say is it is an artifact of a moment, and I will never forget where I was when I first engaged with Slut Me Out 2.
We're going out on that.
Yeah, there's nothing else to say.